All right, we've got day 3 of the Rising Sun previews, and I bring you my slightly better than mediocre comments once again. Let's see what Donald X has to say. Rising Sun revisits debt, introducing empires. The short version is you can buy some cards without paying for them yet. You can't buy more stuff until you paid off your debt. Which you can now do at any point during your turn. Is that a change for Rising Sun? It sounds like it. So no more screwing over black market. Okay, I'm not going to go over the rules of debt, but let's take a look at these 3 cards. Mountain Shrine. Okay, so we also have different costs of debt. Previously, most debt cards were 4, 8, or a mix of some sort. Okay, Mountain Shrine also happens to be an omen. So we have a +1 sun, +2 coin. You may trash a card from your hand. Always nice. Then, if there are any action cards in the trash, +2 cards. So this becomes cool. This is like you don't necessarily want to be the first person to trash an action card from your hand, because then, of course, your opponent benefits from this. But if there's an action card in the trash, this is pretty powerful. +2 coin, +2 card. The fact that it's debt means, if this is like the only trashing in the game, the fact that it's debt means you can open with this. Given that it's also an omen, I don't really know how the prophecies are going to, whether there's the kind of thing that you want to be the one to open them up or whatnot. But it's just interesting to note that because it's debt cost, you'll be able to open with this omen. I wonder if there are going to be any omens that say +2 sun. Probably not, right? Given that in 2 players the prophecies start with 5 tokens. Anyway, I mean, this looks like a fairly good card. You obviously want village support. The one thing that I'm sort of thinking here about putting actions in the trash is usually, which action cards end up in the trash. There's obviously strange special cases like Lurker, Necromancer, things like that. But typically, an action card that gets put in the trash is something that's outlived its usefulness. And things that outlive their usefulness, I'm thinking, strong trashers like Chapel. In which case, the trashing part of this is maybe not so effective. Like, in what cases are you putting an action into the trash? Sometimes what I've started to do strategically is to overload what is, I don't know what the word is, but take more terminal actions than I have space for, just in case they do not collide. And in the early game and in the early mid game, having more terminal actions than you can play sometimes can give you the edge over your opponent. There's a risk of collision, but if they don't collide, you're in really good shape. But then later on in the game, when you get deck control, you may not have the terminal space for that, and so maybe it might be all right to trash one of those. On the other hand, if there's a way of gaining certain action cards very cheaply, then maybe you don't mind trashing one of them. There's a lot of action cards that move themselves to the trash as well. Mining Village and Pixie are some others that I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah, this just looks like a pretty. It's well rounded, right? It's almost like it's like Jack of all trades, where it does a little bit of everything. +2 coin, +2 cards, trash a card from your hand. Yeah, so that seems all right. I mean, it's not like overpowering either, but +2 coin, +2 card on its own is pretty strong. But you just have to work on getting the action card into the trash. And also keep in mind you're doing that for your opponent as well. Okay, let's move on. Daimyo. Daimyo. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. If someone could pronounce that for me, that would be great. So it's a cantrip. The next time you play a non-command action card this turn, replay it afterwards. So it's like flagship. Is this? I think this is the exact same wording as flagship, except this one is restricted to this turn. So flagship is the next time period. That's why it's a duration. But it's the next time you play an action card this turn. Replay it afterwards. This is probably more like... This is quite a bit stronger than Throne Room, isn't it? Because let's take the simplest example. You've thrown a smithy. Let's say you've thrown a smithy out of your starting hand. Once you play the throne, you play the smithy. You now have 3 cards. Then you draw 6, so you're up to 9, and you have no actions left. If you play Daimyo and then a smithy, so first you'll be down to 4 cards in hand. Then you'll draw 6, and you have actions left. So, the difference between Throne Smithy and Daimyo Smithy. Throne Smithy is 9 cards in hand and no actions left. But Daimyo Smithy is 10 cards in hand and 1 action left. No, you would still have no actions left, right? Because you would still have no actions left. Yeah, so, I mean, this card I can see getting pretty funky if you, say, throne this card. How would that work? You've thrown this card, so you play this twice. It doesn't trigger itself because it says non-command and it is a command card. But you've played this twice, so you still have 5 cards in your hand. You now have 2 actions left. Let's say you play a smithy. That smithy effectively gets played 3 times because it gets played naturally. Then it gets played by the first play of Daimyo, and then it gets played again by the second play of Daimyo. Yeah, I mean, I see this as essentially just like another throne variant. But quite a powerful one, I think, because of the cantrip and the fact that you can open it on lower price points. If you have a bad shuffle or something like that and you're only hitting 4 or 5 a bunch of times rather than actually hitting 6 properly, you can still get this. You can't use this the way you can use flagship to set up your next turn. There's no because it says non-command action card this turn. I guess you can still play, you can still use this on a duration. So let's say you play this on a wharf. The wharf would get played twice. And then this would, I'm almost certain that this would stay in play with the wharf for its duration effect. And you'll get the next turn duration effect from wharf twice as well. It seems like, again, it seems like it's a throne variant. A little bit stronger than throne. More expensive in some sense, incomparable cost, but still in a way more expensive, but you can still get it and pay off the debt later. All right, cool. Next card, Artist. +1 action, +1 card per card you have exactly 1 copy of in play. Okay, so this is, we've seen a few times before things like +1 card for every uniquely named card in play. What is the recent House Carl, the reward from the updated, the new Joust card? This is kind of like that, except worse. I mean, it's +1 action, whereas House Carl was terminal. and you can actually buy this. Something interesting to note is, of course, Artist doesn't, it'll never trigger off of its, the first play of Artist does trigger off of itself. So if Artist is the first card you play in a turn, it's just a cantrip. But the second play of Artist that you get does not actually benefit its own draw in any way. I mean, this seems like a card that belongs in the Cornucopia set. Cornucopia is supposed to be all about rewarding having a variety of different types of cards in your deck. I mean, I could see this having cases where it's huge draw. I could see cases where it's nothing special at all. Sometimes to look out for Artist and sort of trigger that maybe this is going to be something good is if there's rotating piles or split piles or anything like that, or ways to get treasures in play in the middle of your action phase. So, Storyteller, Black Market. Black Market already will give you a lot of uniquely named cards. So, Artist should be huge draw in a Black Market game. But if you think of some of the rotating piles from Allies, this, I guess, also probably likes durations in some sense. If you have some durations in play that that you don't have repeat copies of, so something like Cargo Ship, you often have only one in play. Siren, you often only have one in play. Any duration where you typically only have one. Sometimes in the earlier mid game you might have only one wharf in play, but if you're getting an engine going, you're probably playing a couple of wharves per turn, and so this won't really help you. But yeah, I think the rotating piles are something you want to watch out for, because you from a single rotating pile you might end up having like one of each copy of those cards. Maybe not all of them, maybe 2 or 3 of them, but it just gives you more uniquely named cards in your deck that can trigger this draw. The fact that it gets +1 action back also, I guess that's to help it compete with this would be obviously not nearly as good if it didn't have the +1 action. I'm trying to compare, I'm trying to think how this might compare to, let me turn the light on here, there we go. How this might compare to City Quarter. City Quarter is one of those cards that can give explosive draw. But I guess you might actually need to work a little bit more to have Artist trigger its big draw situations. I don't think it's going to be quite as explosive as City Quarter. But City Quarter has the risk of, like, you draw City Quarter and say a cantrip and then 3 treasures. Like, what do you do? City Quarter is essentially, in that case, never going to draw. City Quarter is never going to be more than a standard village there, unless the cantrip finds a better draw card. But Artist, on the other hand, if you're in that situation with Artist, you have Artist and a cantrip and 3 treasures. You can play the cantrip, and then the Artist becomes a lab. And if your cantrip happens to draw a differently named cantrip, then the Artist becomes, a +3 cards. So, I mean, this is kind of classic Dominion. There's some cases where Artist will be better draw, some cases where it's worse draw than City Quarter. But, yeah, obviously when you're doing kingdom analysis at the beginning, if you're relying on Artist for draw, you want it to be one of those kingdoms where you're going to have a variety of different cards, and things like rotating piles, Black Market, putting treasures in play during the action phase, and potentially durations are the kind of thing that Artists might like. Okay, let's see what Donald X has to say about the Mountain Shrine. Another omen is a trasher that powers up as soon as... Okay, sure. Daimyo is the cantrip version of Flagship you didn't know you needed. Yep. Unlike Flagship, it lets you play the card you're going to repeat with no other tricks needed. Oh yeah, you can play a whole bunch of these. Just play tons of these, and then play, the actual action you want, and you'll get it a whole bunch of times. Artists can draw a lot of cards, provided you have a nice variety of cards in play. Sure. Okay, let's check out the events. Continue is an 8 det event. Once per turn, gain a non-attack action card costing up to 4. Return to your action phase and play it. +1 action, +1 buy. So we've seen a few events. Is it just one event that returns us to the action phase so far? I don't remember what it's called. It's not Journey. I think it's something that came out with Plunder. Leap? I don't know. There was an event recently that was that returns you to your action phase. I think it gave +, action, +, buy, + card. So this seems very similar to me in that sense, except you're gaining a non-attack action costing up to 4. So this seems like, sure, it costs 8 det, but the effect itself is probably stronger than that previous event. I don't remember what that event is called, but it says + action, + buy, + card, and I think it cost 3, maybe 4. So the way I'm thinking of using this, because you're gaining a non-action, you're gaining an action card costing up to 4, gain a smithy. Then you return to your action phase. You've gained a card into your deck, which is good. You've played the smithy, so you're drawing 3 cards and then returning to your action phase. I see it as kind of comparable to that other event. I wish I could remember what it was called. What could this do some funny things with? The most, if you have cost reduction, you could be gaining a draw card better than Smithy, like gain a hunting party. Then you kick off this return to action phase with more cards. Because it's det, if you have something that kicks off a turn based off of how many cards you have in your hand, Marquise, for example, then again, you would need cost reduction for that. You could gain, if you still have some actions in your deck, or in your hand, gain a flagship. You play the flagship, and then play whatever action you have in your deck, and this, the flagship, sort of recuperates some of its own cost of the debt, and then double plays whatever's in your hand. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of tricky ways that this event could be used. But it's very expensive. But keep in mind, you are gaining a card into your overall deck, which costs up to 4, and so imagine it in some sense costs 4 det or 4 coin. 4 coin to re-kick off your turn and potentially prevent a dud. Sometimes it is going to be worth it. Okay, so cool event. Credit. Gain an action or treasure costing up to 8 plus det equal to its cost. Okay, so this first thing that comes to mind for this is opening with an extremely strong 5-cost card, opening with a really good trasher, opening with a really strong attack. If on turn 1 if you have a standard 3-4 opening, on turn 1, you buy this and pick up a witch. You pay off, so you gain 5 debt. You pay off 1 of it immediately. I mean, so you have 7 money in your deck to start the game. If you use this to gain a witch, you'll have it costs 2 and you pick up 5 debt. That's 7 cost in total that you have to repay. So this allows you to open with a 5 on your first shuffle. So if there's like an ultra powerful 5, junk dealer, witch, something like that, recruiter, you can get this immediately. If there's a really strong 6 or 7 cost card, you can still do that. It's just you're not going to be paying off the debt until partway into your second shuffle. Only actions or treasures, though. Of course, you can't take the last colony or something like that with this. Yeah, I just see this as a way of getting those very strong, very important cards into your deck. Let's say 1 shuffle earlier than you probably would have. Usually going to be worth it. Something like this, I feel like an event like this, it might also be good to be able to track how much money you have in your deck in total. If you're going to use this, where another place where this will be very useful is, let's say there's an action card you really need to add to your deck, and you're about to enter a new shuffle, and for some reason you don't quite have the money to afford it. Like, let's say you want to throw a treasurer into your deck. You have no cards in your deck, everything is in your discard pile, and you only hit 4. Well, you can take credit. That treasurer is now in your deck, so it'll be in the next shuffle. Sure, you have a little bit of extra debt, but it might be worth it to get the extra play of treasurer or whatever card it is you're adding. So it's like, it can be like an emergency gain of something that for some reason you just didn't quite hit the price point for, and you really want it to be in your deck on the next shuffle rather than missing the shuffle. So I could see using it in that case later on in the game, not just opening with something very powerful. Okay, so cool, yeah. And the last event, practice. You may play an action card from your hand twice. So this is a lot like the 2 cost, is it toil? The 2 cost event, play an action card from your hand. It's essentially that, but play it twice. Okay, how do we cheap this out? So, are there any cards? What is it? Animal Fair? Animal Fair gives +4 coin and +1 buy per empty supply pile. That's potentially a lot of... Well, you have to have the Animal Fair in your hand, don't you? It's not like Scepter, where you play it from already being in play. Is there an action that says replay a card in play? I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying. I was trying to think of ways where you could explode the, have this be like a net increase in both buys and money. I guess Animal Fair is one way of doing it. Something like, which is the one that gives horses on gains? Is it livery? Enter your buy phase, keep a livery in hand, buy practice, play livery twice. So in terms of the money, you break even on what you would have been able to do anyway, but now when you make your purchases with livery in play, you're getting 2 horses instead of 1. So that's a nice little way of doing it. Something like Treasurer, you play Treasurer twice from your hand. you can now gain the key and... Oh, but if you gain a treasure from the trash, you can't play it because you've already started buying things. But you could put, you could trash a treasure and gain the key in one turn. Yeah, so I'm thinking this is going to be played. You're going to want to use this on cards that can recuperate the cost a little bit at least. This would also be great on Merchant Guild. Play Merchant Guild from your hand twice. So you effectively lose 1 coin, but you're going to be gaining more coffers for every buy. So if you already have quite a few buys through other means, double playing a Merchant Guild will simply give you a lot more coffers. Yeah, again, very similar to Toil, but probably more ways of doing funny things that recuperate the cost of Toil. I've been talking about Flagship all day. This is, Flagship is another one that seems like pretty cool. Just play Flagship twice from your hand. You recuperate. If you play a Flagship from your hand normally, it gives 2. So doing a practice on a Flagship nets you 1, but then your next turn will kick off very strong because the first card you play gets triple played. Yeah, I guess I like this. Again, nothing I've seen here seems to be like overly crazy powerful, which I like for Dominion cards because I don't want to see a card and then that's the only thing you focus on. Yeah, what does Donald X have to say? Continue is a Villa family event that also gains a cheap action and plays it. Maybe that will save your turn. Yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking you want to save your turn, so gain and play that smithy to draw something. Credit lets you buy something using debt. Turn 1 prince. Don't do this. Do not turn 1 a prince with credit. That's a good way to set yourself far behind. Actually, do it. Everyone that I meet on ladder, everyone that I see on ladder, hit up the turn 1 prince. Sounds like a great idea. Practice simply plays a card twice, handy with plenty of things. Yeah, I'm sure there's a million examples that I didn't think of where that could be very cool. Right. Yeah, so looking forward to more previews over the next couple of days. I'll do them Thursday and Friday again. The one on Friday might not be until late in the day, so I won't be jumping the gun. I don't really know. It'll sort of depend on my schedule. Let me know if you have any other ideas for cool combos for you to use with these new cards. Leave a comment, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.